Hey there, you looking kinda cute. Don't forget to subscribe and check out my other socials for more. Enjoy. Carl's mind raced with questions, fears, and a glimmer of hope. Caroline's words echoed in his ears. Everything will get better. He wanted desperately to believe her, but the weight of his current struggles felt insurmountable. How? Carl's voice cracked, barely above a whisper. How does it get better? Caroline's eyes softened, filled with understanding and compassion. She reached out, hesitating for a moment before placing a gentle hand on Carl's shoulder. The touch sent a shiver through him, a connection to a future he couldn't yet imagine. One day at a time, she said, her voice steady and reassuring. It's not an easy journey, but it's worth it. You'll find your true self, your happiness, and you won't be alone. Carl's gaze fell to the shape-shifting pills in his hand. He rolled them between his fingers, marveling at their potential. And they really work? I can become anyone? Caroline nodded. For a limited time, yes, but remember, they're just a tool. The real transformation comes from within. Carl's heart raced as he contemplated the possibilities. He glanced at the mirror, catching sight of his reflection. The short hair, the angular jaw, the body that never felt quite right. Then he looked at Caroline, seeing a glimpse of his potential future. I want to try, he said, his voice gaining strength. I want to feel right. Caroline smiled, a mix of pride and sadness in her eyes. Go ahead, think of Amy. Focus on every detail. Carl closed his eyes, clutching the pill tightly. He pictured Amy's face, her warm brown eyes, the curve of her smile, the way her hair fell in soft waves. He thought of her laugh, her kindness, the way she made him feel seen. With a deep breath, he swallowed the pill. The change was instant and exhilarating. Carl felt a tingling sensation spread throughout his body, like 1,000 pinpricks of light dancing across his skin. He opened his eyes, gasping as he caught sight of his reflection. Amy's face stared back at him, eyes wide with wonder. Carl raised a hand to his cheek, marveling at the soft skin beneath his fingers. He ran his hands through long, silky hair, twirling a strand around his finger. Oh my God, he breathed, his voice now a perfect match for Amy's. This is incredible. Caroline watched with a bittersweet smile. How does it feel? Carl spun around, watching the way his new body moved. It feels right, like I'm finally comfortable in my own skin. He paused, a lump forming in his throat. Is this how I'll feel all the time, once I transition? Caroline nodded. It takes time, and it's not always easy. But yes, this feeling of rightness, it becomes your new normal. Carl's eyes welled with tears, overwhelmed by emotion. Thank you, he whispered, for showing me this, for giving me hope. As the effects of the pill began to wear off, Carl felt a pang of loss. He watched as Amy's features melted away, replaced once again by his familiar reflection. But something had changed. There was a spark in his eyes that hadn't been there before, a glimpse of the person he could become. Caroline handed him the remaining pills. Use these wisely, she cautioned. They can be a powerful tool for self-discovery, but they're not a substitute for the real journey. Carl nodded, clutching the pills tightly. I understand. I won't waste this opportunity. A comfortable silence fell between them, the weight of the moment settling in. Carl's mind raced with questions about his future, about the path that lay ahead. But he hesitated, unsure if he should know too much. Can you tell me anything else? He asked tentatively. About my life, I mean, without messing up the timeline or whatever. Caroline considered for a moment, weighing her words carefully. I can't give you specifics, she said, but I can tell you this. You'll find your strength. You'll discover a resilience you never knew you had, and you'll build a life filled with love and purpose. Carl's heart swelled with hope. And Amy? Do we Caroline's eyes twinkled with amusement. Some things are better left as surprises. But I will say this, Amy plays an important role in your life. Just be patient and open with her. Carl nodded, a small smile tugging at his lips. He glanced at the clock, realizing how much time had passed. "How long can you stay?" he asked, suddenly anxious at the thought of Caroline leaving. "Not much longer," she admitted. "Time travel has its limitations. But before I go, is there anything else you want to know? Anything I can help with?" Carl's mind raced, trying to think of all the questions he'd always wanted answered. But in that moment, only one truly mattered. "Will my parents? Will they understand? Will they accept me?" Caroline's expression softened, a mix of compassion and determination in her eyes. "It won't be easy," she said gently. "There will be challenges and misunderstandings.
But don't give up on them. With time and patience, they'll come around. Your happiness will become their priority."
Carl nodded, blinking back tears. He took a deep breath, squaring his shoulders. "Okay, I can do this. I will do this." Caroline smiled, pride shining in her eyes. "Yes, you will. And you'll be amazing." She glanced at her wrist, where the time machine disguised as a watch blinked insistently. "I have to go soon. Is there anything else you need?" Carl hesitated, then stepped forward and wrapped his arms around Caroline in a fierce hug. She stiffened for a moment, surprised, then returned the embrace. "Thank you," Carl whispered, "for everything, for showing me that there's a future worth fighting for." Caroline's voice was thick with emotion as she replied, "You're welcome. Remember, you're stronger than you know, and you're never alone." They stepped apart, both wiping away tears. Caroline's watch began to emit a soft, pulsing glow. "One last thing," she said quickly. "In your desk drawer, there's a journal. Start writing. Document your journey, your thoughts, your fears, and your triumphs. It'll help you process everything, and someday it might even help others who are going through the same thing." Carl nodded, making a mental note.
"I will. I promise."
The glow from Caroline's watch intensified. She gave Carl one last smile, full of love and encouragement. "Take care of yourself, and remember, the best is yet to come." With a brilliant flash of light, Caroline vanished, leaving Carl alone in his bedroom. He stood there for a moment, staring at the spot where she had been, his mind reeling from everything that had transpired. Slowly, he walked to his desk and opened the drawer. Sure enough, there was a leather-bound journal he didn't remember owning. He ran his fingers over the cover, feeling the potential contained within its blank pages. With a deep breath, Carl sat down and opened the journal. He picked up a pen, hesitating for just a moment before beginning to write. "Today, I met my future self, and for the first time in my life, I have hope." As Carl poured his heart onto the pages, he felt a sense of purpose and clarity he'd never experienced before. The shape-shifting pills sat on his desk, a tempting promise of exploration and discovery. But for now, writing was enough. It was a start, the first step on a long and challenging journey. Days turned into weeks, and Carl found himself returning to the journal often. He documented his thoughts, his fears, and his growing understanding of who he truly was. The shape-shifting pills became a tool for exploration, allowing him to experiment with different appearances and presentations. One afternoon, as Carl sat at his desk, staring at his reflection in the mirror, he made a decision. He picked up his phone and dialed Amy's number, his heart pounding in his chest. "Hey, Carl!" Amy's cheerful voice answered. "What's up?" Carl took a deep breath.
"Amy, I was wondering if we could talk. In person. There's something important I need to tell you."
There was a brief pause on the other end of the line. "Of course," Amy replied, her tone softening with concern. "Is everything okay?"
"Yes, no, I don't know," Carl stammered. "It's complicated. But I trust you, and I need someone to talk to about this."
"I'm here for you, Carl, always," Amy said warmly. "Want to meet at the park in an hour?"
Carl agreed, and as he hung up the phone, he felt a mix of anxiety and relief. Telling Amy the truth about his identity was terrifying, but he knew it was a crucial step forward. An hour later, Carl found himself sitting on a park bench, nervously fidgeting as he waited for Amy to arrive. He spotted her in the distance, her familiar figure approaching with a wave. "Hey," Amy said softly, sitting down beside him. "What's going on? You seemed pretty serious on the phone." Carl took a deep breath, steeling himself for what he was about to say.
"Amy, we've been friends for a long time, and you're one of the most important people in my life. There's something I need to tell you, something I've been struggling with for years." Amy reached out, placing a comforting hand on Carl's arm. "Whatever it is, I'm here to listen. No judgment, I promise." Carl nodded, grateful for her support. "The thing is, I've never felt comfortable in my own body. For as long as I can remember, I've felt like I was born in the wrong skin. Amy, I think I'm transgender." The words hung in the air between them, and Carl held his breath, waiting for Amy's reaction. To his surprise and relief, her expression softened, and she squeezed his arm gently. "Oh, Carl," she said, her voice filled with empathy. "Thank you for trusting me with this. I can't imagine how difficult it must have been to keep this to yourself for so long." Carl felt tears welling up in his eyes. You're not freaked out?" Amy shook her head, a small smile on her lips. "Not at all. I'm honored that you felt comfortable enough to share this with me, and I want you to know that this doesn't change how I feel about you. You're still my best friend, no matter what."
Relief washed over Carl, and he let out a shaky breath.
"Thank you," he whispered. "I was so scared to tell you. I didn't want to lose you."
"You could never lose me," Amy assured him. "So tell me more. How long have you known? And is there a name or pronouns you'd prefer me to use?" Carl spent the next hour opening up to Amy, sharing his struggles, his fears, and his hopes for the future. He told her about the journal, about his plans to start therapy, and his desire to begin transitioning. As the sun began to set, casting a warm glow over the park, Carl felt a weight lift from his shoulders. He had taken a huge step forward, and with Amy's unwavering support, he felt stronger than ever. "Thank you for listening," Carl said as they stood to leave. "For understanding. It means more than you know." Amy pulled him into a tight hug. "Always, and hey, if you ever need someone to go shopping with or help with makeup, I'm your girl." Carl laughed, a genuine, joyful sound that he hadn't heard from himself in years. "I might just take you up on that offer." As they walked out of the park together, Carl felt a sense of peace settle over him. The road ahead would be challenging, but he wasn't alone. He had Amy. He had the memory of Caroline's visit to give him hope, and most importantly, he had the strength within himself to become the person he was always meant to be. That night, Carl sat at his desk, the shape-shifting pills laid out before him. He picked one up, rolling it between his fingers as he contemplated his next move. With a deep breath, he swallowed the pill and closed his eyes, focusing on the image of the woman he knew he could become. As the transformation took hold, Carl opened his eyes and gasped at the reflection staring back at him. For the first time, he saw himself as he truly was, not Carl, but Caroline. She ran her hands through long, soft hair, marveling at the curves of her body and the softness of her features. Tears of joy streamed down Caroline's face as she whispered, "This is me. This is who I'm meant to be." In that moment, she made a promise to herself. She would embrace this journey, face the challenges head on, and become the person she saw in the mirror. With trembling hands, she picked up her journal and began to write, "Today, I saw my true self for the first time, and I'm never looking back." As the effects of the pill wore off, Caroline, still thinking of herself with her chosen name, felt a renewed sense of purpose. She knew the road ahead would be long and often difficult, but she was ready to take the first steps. The next morning, Caroline woke up early, filled with a nervous energy. She had made an appointment with a therapist who specialized in gender identity issues, and the day had finally arrived. As she got dressed, she paused, looking at herself in the mirror. For the first time, she allowed herself to really see the person beneath the surface, not the body she was born with, but the woman she knew herself to be. With shaking hands, she reached for her phone and dialed her parents' number. It was time for another difficult conversation, but one she knew she couldn't put off any longer. "Mom? Dad? I need to talk to you about something important. Can you both come over this evening?" The day passed in a blur. The therapy session was both emotionally draining and incredibly validating. Caroline felt seen and understood in a way she never had before. The therapist provided resources, information about hormone therapy, and a roadmap for the transition process. As evening approached, Caroline paced nervously in her living room, waiting for her parents to arrive. When the doorbell rang, she took a deep breath, steeling herself for what was to come. "Hi, sweetie," her mother said as she entered, giving Caroline a hug. Her father followed, a look of concern on his face. "What's this all about, son?" he asked, his brow furrowed. "You sounded pretty serious on the phone." Caroline gestured for them to sit down, her heart pounding in her chest. "Mom, Dad, there's something I need to tell you. Something I've been struggling with for a long time." She took a deep breath, looking from one parent to the other. "I'm transgender. I'm a woman. I know this might be hard to understand, but I need you to know who I really am." The silence that followed was deafening. Caroline watched as shock, confusion, and a myriad of other emotions played across her parents' faces. Her mother was the first to speak, her voice barely above a whisper. How long have you known?" "In some ways, I think I've always known," Caroline replied, her voice shaking. "But I've only recently found the courage to accept it and say it out loud." Her father stood up abruptly, pacing the room. This is a lot to take in. Are you sure about this? Maybe it's just a phase or confusion or—" "Dad," Caroline interrupted gently. "This isn't a phase. This is who I am. I know it's hard to understand, but I need you to try. I'm still the same person you've always loved, just finally being honest about who I am." Her mother reached out, taking Caroline's hand. "We love you no matter what. This is unexpected, and it will take some time for us to adjust. But you're our child, and we want you to be happy." Tears welled up in Caroline's eyes. "Thank you, Mom. That means everything to me." Her father stopped pacing, running a hand through his hair. I don't understand this. I won't pretend that I do. But I love you, and I'll try. It's going to take time, but we'll figure this out together." Caroline nodded, wiping away tears. "That's all I ask. For you to try, to learn, to be open to understanding. I know this isn't easy for you either." The conversation that followed was long, emotional, and at times difficult. There were tears, questions, and moments of tension. But beneath it all was a current of love and a willingness to try. As her parents were leaving, Caroline's mother turned to her. Is there a name you'd prefer we use?" Caroline smiled through her tears. "Caroline. My name is Caroline." Her mother nodded, pulling her into a tight hug. "We love you, Caroline. We'll get through this together." As the door closed behind her parents, Caroline leaned against it, emotionally exhausted but feeling lighter than she had in years. She had taken another huge step forward, and while the road ahead was still long, she felt more confident than ever that she could face whatever challenges lay ahead. She walked to her desk, picked up her journal, and began to write. "Today, I told my parents the truth. It was terrifying and beautiful and heartbreaking all at once. But for the first time in my life, I feel like I'm truly being seen. My name is Caroline, and this is just the beginning of my story." Thanks for watching. Don't forget to check out my other socials if you want more wonderful content, early access, behind the scenes, and more. All links down below.